I'm Manveen Rana, Innovations Editor here at Hub Culture, Davos 2024, and I'm joined by Stuart Brocklehurst from Exeter University. Stuart, Davos is freezing, and you've decided to do it in a slightly unusual way. Are you really camping?
So yes, I've been in a tent all week. The first night in the morning I got up and found my toothpaste had frozen.
I'm not surprised.
So I've now learnt to keep my wash bag inside the sleeping bag overnight, but it's a different way to experience Davos from the standard.
How are you surviving?
I've got a warm sleeping bag,
freezing.
so
It's freezing.
it's absolutely fine, and you can open the tent and see the stars at night. It's ideal.
You'll be ready for an Arctic excursion after this?
Definitely so.
Tell us what you're doing here at Davos.
There's one issue which is unlike any other which we face as a species. Climate change is the greatest challenge that humanity has ever encountered. So wherever decision makers gather, it's vital to ensure that the science of climate change is front and centre. So as they make their plans and strategies, they understand the challenges that we're facing. The Arctic is warming at 4 times the rate of the rest of the world.
Yeah.
In the Antarctic, in the last year, we've lost sea ice equivalent to 5 times the area of the United Kingdom. So there's a group of us, polar scientists, academics, and the old guy, me, who are camping out at Arctic Base Camp here to speak science to power, to ensure that the message of climate change is front and centre at Davos.
And you've brought Arctic Base Camp here.
Indeed, and not just the base camp, we've also brought the Arctic here with virtual reality headsets. So we've had various delegates, United Nations officials, business people who can put on the VR and see how the climate is changing the Arctic year by year, so that people can have that reality and really get the sense of how the world is changing.
I know I'm not going to like the answer, but for those of us who haven't tried the VR set, just how bad is it?
It's horrifying, but
what does it look like?
Essentially, what you're seeing is the frozen tundra disappearing. You're seeing, as you flick from the current to the past, how that is retreating at a rapid rate of knots, and you're seeing the habitat of the wildlife there disappearing. But I do want to say, if I could, one thing. It's right to be terrified by climate change, but we also have hope alongside that. In the pandemic, we're all locked in our houses, waiting for scientists to discover the answer, to come up with a vaccine. We have the vaccine. We know exactly what we need to do. The scientists have set that out very clearly. There are positive tipping points which can really pull us back from the brink. And although we're nowhere near where we need to be, we've made good progress already. So it's essential, I think, to keep these two things together. We rightly should be terrified by what's happening, but we also have grounds for hope, because the answer to the challenge is there before us as well.
I mean, Davos sort of comes hot off the heels of COP28. Being here, the sort of conversations you're hearing, is there a sense of momentum about meeting those targets? You know, it's all very well knowing what the science says, but actually getting there.
I'd say COP28 achieved, I think, more than we expected. Beforehand, we thought, given the setting and the presidency, perhaps this isn't going to go so far. But right at the start, we had agreement to loss and damage, which a little while ago was seen as this weird hippie idea. Now it's agreed global policy. And although the language around phasing out fossil fuels in the final communique was far weaker than it should have been, it is at least in there. And that's a big step forward. And as we look forward not just to Baku this year, but to Brazil next year, I think we can see that there is some positive momentum forward there.
Well, let's hope so. Stuart, thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you, Manveen.
I'm Manveen Rana.